Hi there, I'm Amanda Casser with Material Girl Quilts. Today I'm here to share with you how to make my falling leaves quilt. If you're anything like me, you're holding on to every last bit of summer that you can, but that doesn't mean I can't get started on my fall sewing projects. So today we're going to be making this fall quilt, and when I saw these fabrics when they first came out, I instantly fell in love. I just absolutely love the colors of this collection. This fabric collection is called Shades of Autumn by My Mind's Eye for Riley Blake Designs, and it's a recent release, so you can purchase this in your local quilt shop or online. And I just think it's gorgeous. It also includes some prints with some nice gold metallic in them, like on this one here with these gold leaves. And my favorite is probably this adorable plaid that I used for the binding. It also has some gold metallic in it. So it's a great collection for fall pieces, and I think it's a perfect collection to make a maple leaf quilt with. So let's get started. Now this pattern calls for the use of fat quarters. So you will need a total of 11 fat quarters for your leaves, and each fat quarter will yield 2 different leaf blocks. So the first thing we're going to do to make our each leaf block is we have to create the half square triangles. So for each block, you will need 2 5-inch print squares and 2 5-inch background squares that we will use to create the half square triangles. So you'll place them right sides together, draw a line on the diagonal, and sew 1/4 inch on either side of that line. Okay, so we have sewn 1/4 inch on either side of the diagonal line, and now we need to cut directly on that line. So now once you do that, you will create 2 half square triangles and 4 for each block. Now, once you piece these, you will press towards the dark fabric, so towards the print fabric here. You'll press those and then trim them down to measure 4.5 inches square. Now, the other one other section on this block that we need to do is create the stem section for the block. So you will take one of your 4.5 inch background squares and cut it on diagonal. And then you will also select the 1.5 inch by 7 inch rectangle that's called for in the pattern, and you will then sew one of these triangles on either side of this rectangle. So you will center it on the rectangle as shown, and then sew on a triangle on each side. Now we will I'm going to go get this pressed really well, and I'll show you how we can trim this block. Okay, so now we have this pressed. So the best way to trim this down to 4.5 inches square is, I find that if you will fold this rectangle so that the ends meet up, and then finger press the center line, then when you open it up, you can use your ruler, the diagonal line on your ruler, and line it up. And this actually happens to be in a 4.5 inch square ruler. And you can line it up on that diagonal line and trim your square from there. So that way you will know, if you have that finger press line on your stem, that this stem will be straight in the center of your block. Okay, so here is our stem block that finishes at 4.5 inches square once trimmed. So now we're going to move all this stuff out of the way and piece our block together. So we'll lay out the block first here. Again, you will end up with 4 half square triangles per block, 3 solid print squares and 1 background square, and then your stem section of the block. So now we're going to sew this into rows and then sew the rows together to complete the block. And once the rows are sewn together, we will then press them in opposite directions. So this row will press to the left, this will press to the right, this one to the left, so that our seams will nest nicely and lay flat. And then we'll sew those rows together to finish that block, and it will measure 12.5 inches square. Okay, I know I didn't press while I was piecing this block. I just wanted to get this done for the video, but now I have pressed this block and it's nice and flat. And again, it measures 12.5 inches square. So with the 11 fat quarters, you will make a total of 22 leaf blocks. Now in my falling leaves quilt layout, there are some blank blocks which leave some negative space between the leaves. So you will also need to cut 8 12.5 inch background squares to use for that negative space within the quilt. So once all of your blocks are completed, you will also need to cut your sashing rectangles. And then you will lay your blocks and your sashing out according to this diagram, making sure to rotate the direction of your leaf between each block. And you can space out your background blocks however suits you best. This is the pattern that I found worked best with my blocks. But if you want to change the layout of your blocks and use those plain background blocks in different spaces within the quilt, that's totally up to you. You can make it work however you want, but you will make sure that each row has a total of 5 blocks and you will have 6 rows total. You will also need to create sashing rows, so you will take 2 with the fabric strips and sew them together end to end and then trim them to measure the width of your pieced leaf blocks. Once all of these are completed, you will sew your rows and your sashing rows together to complete the center of your quilt. To finish this quilt off, you will use a skinny background border, and the finished size is 69 inches by 83 inches. If you would like a PDF pattern for this quilt, you can do so by going to my website, materialgirlquilts.com, and joining Material Girl Society. You head to the membership link at the top of my website, and there's a link in the video description below that can help you. And if you join the society, you will get access to this PDF pattern as well as each new pattern as it's released each month, including a library of past patterns and other great quilting resources. If you make this quilt, I would love to see it, so please tag me on social media at Material Girl Quilts and use the hashtag FallingLeavesQuilt. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.